and I say we because Ian will be joining me shortly, is the plan. We are going to talk today about measurements and metrics. There's a saying that I heard years ago that was, we measure what matters. And my experience is we measure what we're told matters. And it's not necessarily what matters. And it's very easy to get consumed into measuring things that don't matter and that aren't aligned with the destination that we seek, that aren't aligned with our goals, that aren't aligned with the journey that we want to be taking. And so today that's the piece we're going to explore, is what should we measure? Should we measure at all? And where do we go from there? And so what is it to measure? What does measurement or metrics even mean? And these are the easy to count things. And I think that's sometimes why we get hooked on them. The easy to count things, the self-reporting numbers are easy. And we like easy. I like easy, generally speaking. Sometimes I like a challenge. The majority of us will follow the easiest path. And so if something measures itself, I'm more likely to follow the easy measuring option than the more difficult measuring option. I also find for myself that I'm more likely to measure the thing that I have less control over and then utilize excuses and blame and justifications as to why I'm not getting the results I desire. And so an example of that would be measuring views on YouTube. I cannot control how many views I get on YouTube. And if I focus on that measurement, so likes, views, shares, all of those are outside of my control. They are reliant on other people, you guys, to like, share, comment. I don't know that you can comment. I think I turned comments off. But my point is, none of that's in my control. What's in my control is, am I showing up consistently? Am I delivering value? And that one's tricky to measure without the other metrics. And the desire to provide value based on how other people respond to it, and there's a place for that. There's a place for, how did the other person respond to what I offered? And there is a space to measure that. But in the beginning, when we're learning, we need to measure things that are completely within our control and that are easy to measure. And for me, starting the podcast, and I say starting, it's been a while now, but in this space, building the podcast, there we go. There we move from starting to building. The simplest measure is, did I show up? Did I record? Did I post? Now, sometimes the answers to those are no, but I've got no excuses for that. I mean, that's not true. I can make up excuses for that, but I've got nothing that I can push back on that. Hello.
Hello.
I've only just started a few moments ago, and our theme for today that we started with, because of course, who
Mm-hmm.
knows where we will end up, is measurements and metrics.
Oh
And
boy.
the sentiment that we measure what matters. And I question that a little bit, because I question everything, but I
Mm-hmm.
question that a little bit. And I sense that we measure what we think matters or what we've been told matters rather than what actually matters. And then we also measure what's easy So it's far easier to measure likes and views and shares on a YouTube video than to measure my performance, which takes far more complex analysis. It also takes far more responsibility and self-awareness and a whole bunch of things. It's far easier just to measure the likes and views and shares and blame the rest of the world that
Sure.
things aren't going the way that I want. So that was the theme of today. Are we measuring what matters? Are we measuring what we've been told matters? And how do we tell the difference?
Oh gosh. And then we can get into what does it even mean to say that something matters, and does anything matter?
We could. I wasn't going to go quite that dark, but I've just had 3 days of existential crisis, so I was going to sort of stay light.
We'll assume, for the sake of argument today, that things matter, or at least some things matter, and that we can maybe figure out which things matter to us. We'll just take that as a given.
We'll take that one as a given. But you're right. We could indeed question that assumption. And it then leaves the what does matter. And this comes down to, like, what's the destination that we're seeking? What's the journey that we're taking? And sometimes we are seeking that destination. Sometimes we are just wanting to go on the journey. We don't have to always have a destination in mind. And I think that shifts what we're focusing. If we've got a destination in mind, then we need the metrics, we need the measurements. We've got the mile counters, like how far. My bonus teenager isn't particularly fond of being in the car. And so how much further, how much longer is a common question in the car. And that's an easy metric. And particularly these days, it's an easy metric to respond to because the GPS on the phone tells me. It's like, it says we've got 23 minutes and we will arrive at our destination. And that's fine when you've got a clear destination.
Our kids, we used to tell them it's the next exit we take. Don't worry.
My husband used to say, just around the bend. When we've gone round the bend completely, we'll be there.
Yeah.
Which always made the kids laugh.
I think why we went all existential with the term matter, what matters, is because we have a hard time understanding what people mean by that. We think what they mean. We don't know. What we mean by it is something like relevance or salience or a useful causal relationship.
Ooh, big fancy words. Where are the littles?
The littles are tuckered out. They've been out a lot lately. They're pretty tuckered out today. So it's a big day.
That's okay. We can have big words. What did you say? The causal relationship.
Okay. One of the littles just said, is it helpful?
Yeah.
That's how they boiled down everything I just said. Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew they would have the simplified version.
Yeah.
I am open to the bigger words. So yeah, I think, is it helpful? But I think the causal relationship is key in this, because so often we are measuring things that are not causally linked.
Yes.
And the example I'd started with, I think just before you joined me, was YouTube. The number of likes on a post is not causally linked to the amount of money you will make or the amount of meaning that you have created and movement and transformation. So I'm not particularly fussed on the money metric. I feel like I should care more, and there is that word that tells me that it's a conditioned belief.
Yep.
We're taken care of. My husband works really hard. He brings home enough money. We are well and truly taken care of. The research out there suggests that, I think it was a US study, and it was over $75,000 in the US. Happiness is no longer correlated to money. So there's like a point at which we do need money to survive. Like if you don't have a roof over your head and you're living in your car and you're struggling to put food in front of the family every day, your happiness is probably going to suffer a little bit. Not necessarily. There are plenty of people that manage to bring happiness even in those scenarios. But if you've got enough to live comfortably, and that line was drawn at 75,000 in the US for whatever reason, and I think that's about the average income in Australia. But there's a point at which it tips and the money no longer makes a difference. I was listening to Taki Moore, who is an Australian marketing, he would hate to be called a guru, but that's the word I'm going to go with. The Australian marketing king. He didn't like that word either. He's a very laid back Australian guy. He's like, I'm just doing my thing, and if it adds value, great. But I was listening to him, and someone asked, so he's doing significant amounts of money in his business, like $1.6 million a month or something, and has a tiny team. So I imagine a lot of that is actually coming back as profit, because you see a lot of people talking about, I do 1.6 million and their expenses are 1.8 million and they're not actually making any money. But somebody asked him, what difference does it make to your life? And he said there's a point at which it stops making a difference. Once you've hired the cleaner, once you've hired the cook, once you've hired the nanny, and your everyday life is well and truly taken care of, there's nothing else that the money makes a difference in. Like, there's a tipping point where you're like, well, I can't do anything more in my life. Now I want more adventures. Now I want more fun. And your money will pay for the travel and those kinds of things. But it's not changing happiness. What change, and particularly if you've tied yourself into a business that sucks, then all of that money actually makes it worse, because now you've got more money to manage. You've got more team members to manage. So he'd grown his business and he had 30 team members, and that felt heavy and burdensome because he doesn't see himself as a people manager. And so when he culled his business back, which meant less money, at least for a little while, but it felt lighter and it felt better, and less money for him was still well above what one needs to survive.
Yeah.
Far beyond comfortably, I would suggest.
Yeah, we were listening to an economist lately, an Australian economist, but he teaches at the University of Chicago here. And he had worked it out on a larger scale, something like, once you have X in the bank account, you can literally do anything. And it was what we would call a large number. It was something like $400 million. Once you have 400 million bucks in the bank, you can have everything you want anywhere. There's literally nothing you cannot do.
Yep,
and
that'd buy a train set.
Yeah, a full train set.
Yeah, that was what I meant.
Yeah, you can literally do anything. And then the question was, so then why do we, then he framed it as a policy question of like, should society allow somebody to have more than $400 million? Because then what is the only thing you can continue to buy above $400 million? There's only one thing you can continue to buy, which is power over other humans.
And you don't need $400 million to have the power necessarily.
Right.
The capping the potential to earn, like, there's part of me that is drawn to, we should just eradicate money. Supermarkets should be free. People should be able to go in and get their food, and they contribute to society in their way. And we should just collapse the monetary economy completely and have everybody has access to the same level of food, health, and shelter, and equalize that. But the other part of me questions motivation and intention, and should we have to earn? And I don't think that basic things like health and food and shelter should have to be earned, but where do you draw the line in that? Do you just strip supermarkets back to fruit, vegetable, flour, milk, and like the basics of meat. I'm like, what am I missing? I'm missing meat. We're not giving up meat. Meat is not a luxury.
Well, we would agree. We have friends who would disagree strongly,
I
but
was going
that's
to say,
all right.
I'm sure there are people out there that disagree with that quite
Yeah,
strongly.
I mean, from an economic standpoint, that could be done with there would also typically be a rationing system in place to ensure that, for example, one person doesn't go in and just take everything
Yeah.
from the store. And then the argument from an economist is, we already have that rationing system. It's called money. We're already doing that.
Yes, but the money's not divided equally, and how do you
Right.
navigate the equality? And then there are lots of people driven by the money, but the piece that you bring with the like over 400 million, all you're buying is power. That power is such a strong motivator for some people and not for others.
Mhm.
And I think it's the same with money. Money is a really strong motivator. And I think for anybody under the threshold of what has them live comfortably, and that number's going to vary, like the average was
Mhm.
whatever they found, but that number is going to vary depending on it. Like my husband needs to bring home more than the average because he's supporting a family of 6 at this point.
Right.
Like it's not just him. If it was just him, he could shrink that considerably.
Mhm.
His level of what's comfortable and my level of what's comfortable sit at different points on that spectrum.
Yeah.
I am far more expensive to keep. And yet still in the scheme of things, I don't need $400 million. So I'm not at the extreme of expensive.
Right.
But where people are competing for power or status or the hierarchy, and I think money often becomes the measurement of that. How much money can you earn?
Yeah.
How much value can you give? And it's not always the way. There's a beautiful lawyer that I watch on YouTube who has just quit his or given his resignation. He said he'll work out his 2 weeks notice, his law firm job, which from what I can gather didn't pay a huge amount in the beginning. Like there's plenty of lawyers making lots and lots of money beyond what seems reasonable, and then there's
Mhm.
plenty of lawyers that are at the other end of the spectrum and like not making a huge amount of money. And he was at that, I'm not making a huge amount of money, but he's just quit his law firm job to go and work part-time for the police. They weren't police officers, they were peace officers, and training them on how to arrest people ethically and like make it basically, how do you arrest someone so that we can take it to court and you haven't screwed up the process of the court process for us? So like following
Right.
all of the rights and all of the pieces for. And the reason that he's done that, so he'll be earning less money and he's ramping up his YouTube channel to earn enough money to open a pro bono firm, because he never wanted to make money as a lawyer. He wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And where have we got measuring the metrics that matter? He said someone in his Patreon group had questioned him. He's like, you went and bought a new suit this week. You're not serious about becoming pro bono. And he's like, a new suit
Mhm.
is not a luxury for me. A new suit is a work uniform. If I have to show up in court,
Mhm.
I need a
Yeah.
presentable, like I need something presentable. And I got a new suit not because I wanted to, but because I ripped the old one and it was no longer functional. I do not
Yeah.
like wearing the suits.
Even for your pro bono clients, you're expected to obey the dress code in the
Yes.
court. Yeah.
And so it wasn't any, but it was interesting that like people were judging him on the measurement of, well, you just spent all of this money on buying a suit. You could have helped a client for that. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that you understand how much it costs to run like a legal, the cost of a suit's getting you like 2 hours of lawyer
Yeah.
time, depending on the lawyer. But what are the metrics that matter? And what I love about what Runkle is doing is he's known all along that money was not his metric. Like he wants to be taken care of. He wants to take care of Mrs. Runkle, and he wants
Mhm.
to make sure that they have shelter and food. And I suspect the Canadian health system's similar to the Australian system, and you're not having to pay for healthcare in the same way as you do in the US, because health sort of wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
And so there are some spaces in which health. I mean, I took my daughter to the chemist the other day. I can't remember if I've shared this story publicly or not, but I took my daughter to the chemist the other day, and I was spaced out. We've had a lot going on. I'd taken her to the doctor. She was sick. I was tired. So we get to the chemist. She's never filled a prescription before in her life. And I don't think she's even seen me fill a prescription. My kids have been reasonably healthy our entire life, like their entire lives. And so we've had maybe 3 prescriptions in the last 17 years. And so she hasn't seen me go into the chemist. She hasn't seen the way that it works. And from her perspective, you go to the doctor, you don't pay anything. You go to the hospital, like everything is covered by our health system. Anyway, so we go in, we give the script to the guy, we go out, we get some food, and go back in to pick up the prescription, and we end up in the car park. Now, I don't know what happened between where we were standing at the counter and were given the medication in the basket and how we got to the outside. And she's like, they gave me a basket. I'm like, you're not meant to have a basket. You're meant to give that back. How did we... So obviously I've gone into autopilot and she's just walked out with the bus. I'm like, did we pay?
Yeah.
And she's like, what do you mean, did we pay? I'm like, no, you're meant to go from that counter to the next one.
Yeah.
And pay. And so we then wandered back into the pharmacy, which was busy, so they hadn't even noticed that we'd walked out without paying. And we handed over the basket, which they then kept, and we paid for the medication. But that just is the contrast of the, like, she's so accustomed to free healthcare. So I think in Australia we do healthcare really well. I don't know that we do housing and food particularly well. In fact, I think we do that particularly poorly.
Oh.
But, well, and I say poorly, it feels poorly to me. I'm sure if I started looking at some of the other countries, I'd change my definition and realize that we actually probably do it far better than a lot of other places.
Well,
everything is relative.
There's a billion people in the world who would love to have your poor system of housing people.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. And having said, I mean, we own, concurrently with the bank, we own our own house and haven't had to move. One of Tori's friends, they rent, and they've moved 15 times in her 17 years on this planet. I'm just like, that. Our stability is a luxury that not everybody has access to, and I do recognize the privilege that we have in that. It's easy to get caught in, and we've just done it in this conversation, it's easy to get caught in money as the measurement. But then there are other things like status and affiliation and health. And what are we focusing on? What are we drawn to in terms of measuring? Like, are you living a good life? How does one measure that? And I think that's where that cutting point of, like, do you have enough money to cover, I mean, $400 million to buy anything, including a very extravagant train set, I imagine, which my husband would quite like. If we had $400 million in the bank account, he would still not be allowed to buy the extravagant train set. Because...
No, you're not going to have a narrow gauge railroad in your backyard.
He could, even something that plays on the main line, he's not allowed, because I know what comes with that. And what comes with that is someone that has to manage the paperwork and the red tape and the employees. And you can't just pay somebody to do that. So him buying an extravagant train set buys me a job I would hate. Because he's not managing the railway. I would be. And I don't want to do that. That's not on my... You'd need at least 500 million so that you could pay someone for 10 years to manage the railway for you.
Well, and it's got him outside playing with his train set all the time instead of doing whatever.
I know. We already live that world. That's not a particular shift. he had a
that's
day off
true.
the other day, and I was on a call, and he sent me a text message, and I'm like, you can talk to me. This call is one where I can have a conversation with you. And he's like, I'm going to go look at trains. I'm like, all right, you go look at trains. And he was literally going to go and watch his workmates shunt in the yard at work.
Well, on his day off.
On his day off.
Mm-hmm.
And he frequently ends up at work on his days off, and picks up overtime. They've put a cap on overtime at the moment, which he's not enjoying. Not because he cares about the money, though I quite like the money that we get from the overtime, but because he wants to play with trains. Like, him having to take a day off is a punishment, not a reward.
Right.
Which is an interesting piece. So, looking at punishments and rewards, and the other example that just came up in my mind, we took my daughter to the hospital on Sunday night. She has tonsillitis and was just miserable. She'd had 5 days worth of doses of antibiotics, and she still wasn't shaking it. And I'm like, this is not, I would have expected it to have lifted a little bit after 3 or 4 days of antibiotics. And she wasn't drinking, and she was dehydrated, and she was just miserable. And so I took her to the hospital because it was after hours. And the nurse practitioner that was seeing us after we've gone through all of the hoops of navigating through the emergency department, she says, if you don't drink, then I'll have to put a needle in your arm and give you an IV fluids. And Tori just sat there and went, okay. It was, she's like, I'm dehydrated. I need. Okay, that's okay. That was my fault. He's all right. There's a kitten. I was cleaning the floor in the bathroom earlier, and I left the door open, and I chased 2 kittens out. I obviously missed one. But that distinction between reward and punishment. So for my husband, his is clearly wired backwards, because not being able to go to a work is punishment. He wants to be able to play with trains. And the nurse practitioner could not comprehend that the idea of being given a drip or an IV infusion, I don't know if you guys have got the same, like the bag that goes into your veins.
We have that here too.
Yeah, I know. I was trying to work out what you called it. And I'm like, I've watched enough Grey's Anatomy. I don't think the name is different. But we
also have flush toilets and aluminum foil and electricity. We call it instant on lighting.
I was just trying to get the words right. But for Tori, that wasn't a punishment. She's like, I'm miserable. I can't drink. Put the needle in me and just hydrate me. Give me a liter of fluids intravenous, which they did not do. However, they did give her some magical medication that I should know the name of. My nursing background should be helpful there, but it really was not the other night. And whatever they've given her has removed the pain, and she's now drinking. And she came out yesterday. She's like, my pee is a normal color again. I'm like, great. That's what we want. We want we want the hydration. But that reward punishment. So the nurse practitioner was trying to threaten her into, if you don't do this, then this is the consequence. And Tori's sitting there going, but that's not a consequence. It's just that's why we're here, because as much as my mum can do that, we don't have the tools at home. And I am not trained. I didn't get my training to put in intravenous access. So I can't, I mean, I probably could do it, but I haven't been qualified. And I don't know that I want to experiment on my children to work out if I can do it. I did want to experiment on my husband. He wouldn't let me. And that was 20 odd years ago when I was learning. Sorry, I shouldn't say things like that when you're drinking.
Hey, at least we're not drinking alcohol anymore. It's okay.
It's all good. When our reward punishment, and I say backwards, but backwards compared to what? that will shape. So the threat of not making money or the promise of making money. Someone the other day was talking about hiring me to do human design consultations. And she's like, how much would you charge? And I gave a figure. And she's like, that's way too low. And I'm like, well, you pick a figure then.
Well,
Like, you pick a number.
yeah.
And so she offered up a second number. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And she's like, nope, it's not enough. If that's all I'm paying you, you won't be invested enough. You won't care enough. I have to pay you more than that so that you show up completely. I'm like, the more you pay me, the less I'm going to want to play. Like, I
I was gonna
just,
say, she
and
doesn't know you that well.
like, and I mean, she's known me for 15 years. We've done business coaching. This should not be news to her. This is not a
Right.
new map. But it was just like, was this interest, and it was definitely putting her map on me. It was,
Yeah.
this is my belief. This is what I need to be motivated. And you must be, like, not you have to be, but like, I'm assuming you are like me. And therefore, I'm like, yeah, no. Like, money is not the motivator.
Yeah. This your original subject is what matters, and is it what matters to us, or yeah, because she was assuming that what matters to you should matter, or what matters to her would matter to you, because that's what she swims in. She swims in a different water.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And we often do that. We assume that other people think like us.
Mm-hmm.
And we make judgments on other people. What was that? Sorry?
It's a shortcut. It's easier, especially if we have lots of things in common, as opposed to having to sit down and every time you converse someone, ask them 100 questions for context.
Yes. Yes. And it is much easier. And it is often enough, it is correct. I wouldn't say it's correct more often than not, but often enough it is correct that we get away with it. It then creates complications. Now, I'm going to show up, if you give me someone to give a human design reading to and unpack their human design chart, I'm going to show up with enthusiasm and delight and pleasure and deliver as much as I can in the time frame in front of me that's of value. And I suggest you record it so you can listen back to it 20 times, because I'm going to deliver 20 weeks worth of like unpacking it. But if you record it, then you can keep coming back to it and pick up the insides.
Yeah.
Whether you pay me $0 or you pay me $1,000 for that hour isn't going to change how I'm going to show up.
Right.
Because I'm not showing up based on the money. I'm showing based up on the pleasure of playing with someone's human design chart, because that to me is fun and exciting. When we measure, or when we assume that what matters to us matters to other people, it then creates an interesting dynamic. Because where I don't charge enough, other people assume it's because it's not valuable. Other people assume it's because I don't have self-worth. If you valued yourself, you would charge more money. I'm like, no, I can value myself and give this away for free. Those two things are not causally linked, which goes back to your key phrase. Like, how are these causally related? Is there a causal relationship between these things? And
you're not giving it away for free. There's just a different energy that's being exchanged, that you are getting the value returned to you. It just isn't ones and zeros in a bank account.
That's correct. And then we come back to what matters and what matters to me. Now, if someone showed up to a human design report and wasn't engaged and didn't care, then I'd want to charge them $1,000 to go through it, because I need some kind of energy exchange. And if you're not as enthusiastic about your chart as I am, then I'm going to get frustrated, and maybe not quite as enthusiastic as I am. I can be quite enthusiastic about these kinds of things, but at least some level of interest is required for me to want to show up. Now, why you would show up to a human design reading without some level of interest, I don't know. But I've certainly had it with coaching clients in the past where they've shown up as I need to be coached so that I understand what coaching is, and they don't care. Or you said you had a 6-step system and I want to get your 6-step system. And instead of asking for your 6-step system, I'll sign up and pretend to be a coaching client. I had someone do this years ago. I'm like, I've got this 6-step thing and I want to test it out on people and see if it works. And we got to the 3rd session and I, not particularly professionally, it was early in my, I'm like, why are you here? Like, what are we doing? And eventually I worked out, she didn't say it, but eventually I worked out she just wanted to know my system. I said, how about I send you through my 6-step system and we call it a day?
Yeah.
Because right now we're just wasting both of our time. Like, it just isn't. I'm happy to give you the system. Here are the 6 things that I'm coaching on, the scripts, the frameworks, the handouts, have it all and fuck off, because this is not working well for either of us.
No.
And so where we draw that line in terms of measuring what matters. Now, what mattered to me in that was that I got to build my coaching skills, but I can only do with someone that wants to actually be coached. If they don't want to be coached, I can't build my coaching skills. I can build my tolerance and patience skills, but we're not going to actually achieve anything from it because there's nothing there to achieve. It did help me recognize that I couldn't control other people. Sorry.
Yeah, this has been a side effect of our new, minimal refundable deposit that we've been charging for certain type of initial consults. It has freed up our calendar in a nice way by filtering out people who were never going to work for us or with us. And the people who are like, yeah, I'll pay the refundable deposit, they are showing up with the notion that even though they're expecting to get it refunded, they're like, I paid for this time. I want to make good use of this time and make sure I get something out of it.
Yeah.
And it's completely changed the nature of the conversations that I'm having on those calls.
And the easiest investment to measure and to ask for is the money. So people who are invested pay more attention. And that statement in the coaching world, it's like people who pay more attention. And sometimes it is people who are paying cash, but sometimes it's people who are paying with their time. So if someone has $1 million in the bank account and you're charging $27, they're not even going to notice the $27. And I know that's probably not what you're charging, but just that was the number that came up. It's not going to be a blip. But if they've got that $1 million and they've only got 3 hours a week that they've got that's flexible because their investment of an hour in a conversation with you, they're showing up and they're making them like, can we condense this meeting to 15 minutes? Like, how do we get this done? Because they're investing something that is scarce for them.
Yeah.
So for some people, money will be scarce. For some people, time will be scarce. And for some people, energy will be scarce. And for some people, I don't know what the word is, but it's like a mental capacity. And so if they're investing, I had someone the other day message me, she's like, I'd love to play with human design. I just don't have the scope right now to learn something new. And there is so much in human design. I can't invest my mental capacity, for want of better language.
Well, and that's a key one too. That's for us. We only have so many hours a day where we are sufficiently regulated to engage in conversations with other human beings.
Yep.
And so we're not going to spend one of those hours with someone unless it's someone we like being with and we think there's something going to come from it.
Yep. Well, yeah, and that screening process, I mean, the ideal client is going to show up invested on all of those avenues. They've got time that they can invest. Depending on what you're doing with them, I imagine for some of your clients that are willing to pay enough, they don't necessarily need to invest enough time and you do the work for things like contracts and stuff, you can do the contract without their input and then give it back to them for feedback. And their time investment is quite minimal. Their monetary investment increases.
One of our high-income clients just sent us a text while we were on just now, and her assistant's like, hey, we need this done in the next 48 hours. I'm going to send it to you. We don't care what it costs. I'm like, all right. Send it. And they're not even going to read too carefully what I send back to them, because we have a level of trust that they know I'm going to give them something that's aligned with what they want. So
well, and that's why you hire people that have different skill sets to you, is so that you don't have to micromanage it. If you want the lawyer to put together the contract so that you don't have to do the equivalent of law school to understand whether the contract is valuable or viable or going to serve correctly, you pay the lawyer to do it. That's the whole point, particularly when time and that learning takes a lot of energy. Learning takes a lot of time and energy and focus. And if you can pay someone that's done that time, which you have, like your experience in the legal system, you've got all of that. Why would you not just pay someone if you've got the money? Because obviously not everybody's got the money.
Yeah.
But we can invest in time, money, and energy. And I would much rather be paid in time and energy than in money. That's where the energy exchange is for me. And so knowing that about myself, there's a game to play. The game is interesting, though, because once you put a price on it, other people perceive it as more valuable. And so because everybody else is playing the game of money. And so if you're playing chess with someone that's playing checkers, it becomes complex. And so knowing the game that we're playing is important. But knowing the game that we are playing, irrespective of the game that other people are playing. So if we're playing chess with someone who's playing checkers, we have to be able to adjust at some point, because we're not going to win. Now, I used to play, the kids with board games when they were little, the rules would change halfway through.
Oh, yeah.
So you want to be playing something where you know what the rules are. But things like social media, the rules are changing halfway through. Things like YouTube algorithms, the rules are changing halfway through. So if you're playing a game where someone else can change the rules in any moment, it's really worth knowing the game that you are playing and knowing what it is that you want to measure in the moment. And it's probably not likes, views, comments. And for some people, it will be money. If you're in the game of business, it will be that money. Like, how much money did this video make me? How many new people did it bring in? In the game of transformation, it's transformation. Now, a lot of the time we don't see those results. There are people that will watch the video and you will never know they are transformed. I will never know they are transformed. But knowing that, then we come back to, well, what are we going to measure? And are we going to measure anything? Because we challenged when we started, we measure what matters and we questioned what matters, but does what matters need to be measured would be another question that we could bring.
Ooh.
And then the next logical question in my mind is, can what matters be measured? And the instant answer, somewhere on my bookshelf, I've got a book. I'm trying to look for the author. I can't see the book on the shelf, somewhere there. And it's, you can measure anything. So if you can measure anything, and his argument is you can literally measure anything, and I'm inclined to agree with that statement. Not necessarily that I know how to measure anything, but if I look into it, I can find a way to measure anything. But yeah, do we need to measure what matters, or can we just enjoy the journey? Do we need to know the destination? Do we need to know the mile markers? Do we have a far better time when we completely misread the map and end up 17 kilometers off course, which freaks our parents out because we were a day late coming out of the bush? This was when I was about 13. But we had a lovely time. And we were attempting to measure. We were just measuring poorly because somehow we managed to line the map up incorrectly. And it doesn't take much to get 17 kilometers off course if you're a couple of degrees out in how you lay the map down
Yeah.
on the. And we were bush bashing rather than following a path, and so there was nothing to kind of bring us back onto track because there literally was no track.
Yeah.
And
But your question of does the measuring matter? I think it's an important one. Like for us, just in our life right now, the thing that matters the most right now for us is our healing journey. It's the thing we value the most right now. And we don't want to or need to know where that's taking us. And it's the only respect in which it helps us to measure our healing journey sometimes is to say, shit, it feels like we're not doing anything. And then we can say, well, but no, look at how today's different than 3 months ago or different in certain tangible ways. But if we spend too much time worrying about measuring the healing, then we're out of the healing.
Yes.
And
I was thinking about it in the context of relationships. So there's a bunch of relationship coaches and relationship therapists and relationship books, all of which give you things to measure, some of which were useful to us in our navigating how to like repair the relationship with my husband, and some of them were not. And so matters to who is where we come back to, because these measurements of like, are these things being done, if we don't align in a values sense with those. But one of the relationship, I don't even know that he's a therapist, researchers that we follow is John Gottman and his wife. And what's fascinating about that story, and I'll come to my other point in a second if I remember it, but what's fascinating with him was he spent a decade or two just measuring. So he could observe and predict with, I think it was an 83% certainty, whether a couple in his office would still be together in 5 years' time. So he'd put them in a room, he'd observe them, and he was looking at a thing that he calls emotional bids, and whether they were being received or ignored or just met neutrally. And he could predict with an 83% certainty whether this couple would still be together in 5 years. And he continued observing. So he got that in the first year. And then, I mean, you wait 5 years to make sure that, like, if you're predicting if they're going to be together in 5 years, you have to wait 5 years to actually, like, validate the data. And then you might want to do that for another year or two. I can understand, like, you want to validate a certain amount. But he continued doing it for 20 years. And all he did was observe and measure. At no point did he offer an intervention. And so if all we're doing is measuring, so you measure what matters. Okay, well, I measure. If we look at my YouTube channel, I measure. I've got 62 subscribers. It's been like that for about a month and a half, but I measured it. And I've got, I don't know what the actual views are because I stopped looking at them because all it was doing was annoying me. And I'm like, if all I'm doing is measuring, okay, you've got 62 subscribers. You can measure that every week, and every week you write down the number 62, and maybe next week you write down 61 because someone watched and went, I don't want to watch anymore. And now we're still measuring. But unless we're actually responding to the measurements, what the fuck is the point? And so this relationship therapist who was measuring, it's like, this is what makes a healthy, functional relationship, but we're just going to keep measuring and proving that I can predict that they've not got a functional relationship. And I think it's the same no matter what we're doing. If all we're doing is measuring what matters and not actually refining or adjusting or shifting in some way. So you could measure your health. You could go back to before you stepped into treatment, and I'm so delighted, like, you are now a year sober, and we're going to celebrate that publicly because it's worth celebrating. But you could go back to like a year and a half ago, you were measuring your health. It's like, all right, well, I'm measuring. I drank this much today and I will probably drink that much again tomorrow. I'm measuring my health. It's fucked, but I'm measuring it.
Yeah, and I wasn't doing anything about it, right?
So, yeah, great. We're measuring what matters, but I would suggest that measuring is not enough and potentially not valid anyway.
Right.
Are we moving the needle towards what matters? Are we making adjustments to now there's a if we're measuring the wrong metric and we're making adjustments, you pick up the wrong relationship book. And so one of the relationship books that we picked up years ago said that women should never lead ever.
Oh, wow.
And if they're going to share their emotions with their husband, they have to ask permission. Hi, Amber. You're okay. Now I did it. I'm like, all right, well, I'm desperate. I will try anything. And I've got to that point of desperation a couple of times in my life with relationships, in health, in wealth. And like, I will try anything. And so I started asking permission to share anything with my husband. And if we'd measured on what they said mattered, which was the asking permission, I was asking permission every time. I was asking permission. Maybe I'd miss it like 1 in 10 times. So I've got like a 90% attendance to this practice. And every time I asked permission, my husband cringed and shut down. And so if we only measure the wrong thing, like, am I asking permission? I'm asking permission. I'm doing all of these things that this relationship book says that I should do to heal my relationship. And then, of course, I start measuring him because he's not playing by his side of the
right.
book. But I'm judging myself. I'm like, if I was doing it right and properly, then he would respond the way the book says. And so I'm judging myself. I'm blaming myself. But it's a metric that doesn't matter. He doesn't want to be asked permission for me to share my emotions. He just wants me to share my emotions. Like, occasionally calibrate.
Yeah.
Is this a good time? Like, don't ring him while he's in the middle of a shunting movement on a train to vent at him about something. That's not
right.
Which I hadn't done often. But that if I'm interrupting something like he's at work, it's not asking permission. It's kind of is this a good time? It's calibrating if it's an appropriate conversation. So
that is a
matters,
perfect and beautiful example. And I just realized I have a compressed time frame today, so we need to hop off. But
yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. But that is a great example for everything we started with 45 minutes ago. So.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. It was lovely to see you. I will connect with you again soon.
Yep. Talk to you soon.
I had the example. So that example of, so I was measuring what I'd been told mattered. And I think the key word in that sentence is told. And so it wasn't what mattered to me, and it was definitely not what mattered to Michael, my husband. It was something that was projected externally onto us. And I think so often that's what we're doing with the measurements, is we're taking somebody else's value, what matters to somebody else, and we're trying to apply it to ourselves. And so I would invite you, if you wish to play and explore, what are you measuring? What are you ignoring measuring? Because there's probably just as much gold in that. What are you ignoring measuring that you know would make a difference? And how would you like to shift that? If you started measuring what matters to you, and if what matters is measured, and challenge those as well. Like, do you need to measure it? Is this something that you just enjoy and connect with? And in relationships, keeping score doesn't tend to work. I've tried. oh my God, have I tried? And it doesn't, it creates separation, it creates frustration. And that relationship could be my marriage, it could be one-on-one coaching, it could be group coaching, it could be the process of inviting people to come and join a community. Like, if we're measuring stuff in those spaces, in those relationship driven spaces, if we're measuring and focused on the measurements, then we're not focused on the connection. There's two sides of our brain, the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, and we connect through the right side and we measure through the left. And so allowing that space. I'm curious to know what you are measuring, what you aren't measuring. And while my ego would love to invite you to a conversation with me, what I invite you to do is to take it out and have a conversation with somebody else. Find someone that you can sit down with and chat, because that's where we discover what matters to us, the contrasts. We don't have to align with everybody. The contrasts are where the gold is. And it is in conversation, it is in moments of connection that we can really start to understand, trust, and value our own maps. And so that's my invitation. Have a conversation. Have a conversation about what you're measuring. Have a conversation about whether it matters. Have a conversation about whether it is helping you create a life that you love. And I will be back in a week with another prompt around uncovering your map. I'm delighted to be here with you, and I look forward to connecting again through this medium in a week or so. I'll talk to you then. Bye.